Lonnie, what do we have going on here? I see your display of all the hammers in the world.
Oh yeah, today we're going to talk about roof framing. And when you talk about roof framing, you got to talk about the tools. And one of the most important tools on the roof is the hammer. These are hammers I used in my day.
Now, Lonnie, I recognize most of these as we're building the home, but that one right there, what's that one used for?
That is so critical. That is a ball peen hammer. And when you're working with tin roofs particularly, you got to use this hammer to prepare that roof tin.
Well, it looks awfully small to be doing a whole roof.
It does the job.
He's got guns like these. You only need a little hammer like that.
Let me tell you something. Our hammers don't have hoses or electric cords on them.
It's time for you to get it with the times, Lonnie. This nail gun, this replaces all of these hammers here. This can get it done in half the time.
Half the time. I'd say probably a lot quicker than that. But welcome back to Between the Studs. We're standing in our world famous cutaway home here, and we're going to continue to talk about the process of building our unique $3 million home, the Monaco.
So this is the 7th episode in this installation where we've talked about framing. The last 2 episodes we talked about framing the floor and the walls, and today we're really going to get into the structure of framing the roof.
And arguably the roof is the most important part of the structure. It protects. It also plays into the architectural design of the home in a big, big way.
Yeah, and if you break it down to 2 basic parts of the roof, right? You've got the structure, the framing members to it, and then you've got the shell, the outer shell, the stuff that protects you from all of the elements. And typically you're going to look at framing materials for the structure, and then you're going to look at more finished materials like, you mentioned tin roof, a metal roof, or an asphalt shingle is what we typically use around here.
So in a typical roofing system, you're going to see a ridge board with some common rafters that tie into the wall, and that's going to provide the structure for your roof. Now in the Monaco, we have quite a bit more intricacies than that.
And in this day and age, the rafter itself oftentimes is extended past the wall 12 inches, 16 inches, even 24 inches or more. It actually creates a style that we're looking for, and we call that part of the house the eaves, and usually it's protected with either aluminum or vinyl, the soffit we call it.
Now this show we're going to mainly focus on the structural part of that. So as I mentioned, some of those rafters and all that, but there's still a few other parts and pieces that go with the structural portion of the roof, and that's going to be your OSB, or oriented strand board. Now we use 1/2 inch, and then there's also these H-clips, which if you've ever been in any of our houses when it's framed and you look up towards it, you'll see all these little black clips. It adds a little bit of extra strength, but what its main purpose is it's meant to basically allow all of those sheets of OSB to expand and contract given whatever season we may be in.
Now today you're going to see, we're going to demonstrate the roof pitches of the Monaco, our model house. I really want you to pay attention to the pitches of our roof. The pitch of a roof can really add architectural flair to your style of your home. The facade, the elevation of the home, it really kind of ties everything together.
Yeah, now let's unpack pitch and slope. Now Mike, you kept saying pitch. We typically say slope, and some people use those terms interchangeably, kind of like concrete and cement, but they're different. And when we're talking about our houses, you're typically going to say slope. Now what a slope means is basically rise over run. So we've got this neat tool here that we've got in our cutaway home, and basically we've pinned this here at 12 inches because that's typically going to be like 4 over 12, 10 over 12. Now in the Monaco, we mainly have 10 over 12, and it's going to drastically change how steep that roof is. It's also going to change how much roof you see versus what you don't see from the curb. So here we can adjust this. Now this here would be a 12-12. I don't get on a 12-12. I'm not getting on the Monaco, any of those roofs.
That'll be fun.
Yeah,
Christmas lights
exactly.
on.
Yeah, exactly. You do that a lot. 10-12 is another very steep roof, right? Now again, the Monaco, we were looking for those nice steep pitch roof lines. Traditionally, most of our houses around here are going to be about an average of about 6-12. Little more comfortable to walk on. I wouldn't recommend a normal homeowner just hopping up there, but it allows snow and water to just run off very easily. Once you get into a 4-12 or a 3-12, you're little on what we call a low slope. We have to do some extra precautions, especially with the 3-12 or a 2-12, but that's going to be more of a flat. It's going to give you more of that modern look. Now, I mentioned slope versus pitch. That's slope, rise over run. A pitch is going to be what is going to be the overall span. So let's say you just had a garage that was 24 feet long. That's the span, 24 feet. And let's say that whole roof structure raised 8 foot. That's going to be 8 over 24. So we do some simple math, a 1 over 3 pitch. So whenever we're talking about it, we're mainly talking about rise and run slope. So think about that. Slope is typically what we're talking about here at Granite Ridge on all of our homes.
And by the way, I've heard Mike sing he does not have good pitch. I guess that's something.
You don't want to hear me singing.
Right.
Welcome to Between the Studs. We are Granite Ridge Builders, custom builders serving northern Indiana, northwest Ohio, and also parts of southern Michigan. We have been building custom homes for almost 2 decades, and we're really passionate about what we do. So join us today as we explore the processes, the trends, and also tips that characterize today's new home. Thanks for watching.
Welcome. On today's show, Between the Studs, we're going to continue talking about the process of building our 10,000 square foot model showcase home called the Monaco in Chateau Creek, just right off of North Coldwater Road in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
You know, Tony, we've been talking about framing the walls and decking the floor now for several weeks. But today we're ready to turn to the most complex, I would say the most important part of the framing process, and that is the roof.
And it seems really simple. You got a ridge, you've got some rafters that tie it all together, you have lots and lots of 4x8 sheets of OSB, oriented strand board, and even more nails.
Well, I can assure you in the 19 years, simple has never been a word we've used to describe it. Now I want you to, for just a second, imagine being 30 feet up in the air. You're on a roof, there's a slope, you're trying to do math while you're up there, you've got the wind blowing in your face, It might be cold, might be a steaming hot day. I can assure you it takes a very skilled craftsman, and we've got the best here in Northeast Indiana, framing all of these homes, and especially that roof structure needs to be perfect.
You lost me at math.
Yeah, once you start getting into like Pythagorean theorem and stuff like that, I'm out.
We use that every day.
I thought I heard on this house they were more like 60 feet.
Oh yeah. This one is high, very high.
It cannot be overstated how important the roof and roof framing is to the structure of the home. I mean, not only does it keep you safe from the rain, I'm not a fan of the rain, but it also creates that architectural style.
The roof ties together all the pieces of the home, the walls, the windows, the doors, even the porch, to create a unified space.
Now the roof is 1/3 to 1/2 of what you see of your overall home when you pull up. So the roof to wall proportion is really important when we're talking the aesthetics of an exterior. And all of those components together is what we like to call streetscaping.
So when we look at these factors, balance, proportion, symmetry, the color of the roof, when we put all these things together, the front facade is so important to how a house looks. And if we've said it once, we've said it a million times, that first impression is so important to the value of your home. And when we look at the roof structure, like we were saying, it's a lot more than you think about. 70 to 80% of kind of what you might, the first impression that you're getting there.
So let's dive in a little bit on what a roof system looks like, especially on our Monaco here, because throughout history, houses have very much been defined by their roof lines.
And the features of the roof give it what we call style or architectural style. The two most important parts of the roof are the roof shape and then the roof pitch or slope.
There's all types of different shapes of roofs. You have a flat roof, you have a hipped roof, a gabled roof, a mansard roof.
And by the way, the mansard roof, you want to see a mansard roof, go to Disney World.
And that mansard roof, the architectural style of that is technically a second empire.
And if you want to see somebody with a jerkin head, Lonnie can also show you one of those.
There's also the shed roof, which we see now in the modern style. And then also gambrel roof. Go take a look at a lot of the barns in our area. You'll see a gambrel roof style roof.
With all of these styles, the roof slope is very important in association with what style we're talking about, as you'll see in our Chateau model.
And the roof pitch and slope are so important, probably more important than the roof shape itself. This really gives your home its personality.
And let's just do another real quick recap on pitch versus slope. For the sake of this conversation, we're going to forget pitch, right? Save that for your singing days. We're concerned about slope. My framers are concerned about pitch. We're concerned about slope. And really the slope is just rise over run. And we always do it over 12 inches. So our run is going to be 12 inches. So for every 12 inches horizontally you go, if it's a 412, you'll go up 4 inches. Or if it's a 612, you'll go up 612, and so on and so forth. So that's why we break it into that. And that's going to tell you the angle of that roof. So a higher 1012 is going to have a higher angle. 1212 is going to be closer to that 45 degrees. But then you get into a 212 and you're at a nice comfortable, 20 degrees. So it makes a big difference though on the style of the home.
So just to recap in architectural styles, there's 3 categories of slopes. The low slope, 112 to 312. Then you've got a 412 to a 812. That's the medium slope. That's the one we normally do, especially the 612. Then you've got the really high pitched ones, and those are anywhere from 912 to 1212.
And this is a very important component when we talk about the gable style. And again, when we talk about a gable, think of the top part of the triangle. And so that's what we're doing on, we're talking about this gabled style roof. And so when we talk about how many of those are in there and the amount of slope and how much roof you're actually seeing, these are very important to style.
Now, we've talked about the importance of the roof structure. We've talked about how it can affect architectural style, but this show is about the Monaco. So let's talk about why we chose the roof styles and slopes for the Monaco.
Well, the Monaco is a modern European chateau style, and we really wanted the exterior to reflect that. But I think that there's probably some thoughts on, people are like, what is chateau? Like, what does that mean?
Well, the word is actually a French word, chateau, I think, or something like that. And it suggests warmth and beauty, manor-like home. It does not suggest a palace or a castle, something that's cold. This is a beautiful, warm feeling that we get when we go to the chateau.
And so the word chateau evokes this high-pitched gables on the front of the elevation.
So when we started designing the Chateau architectural style, we started with the 5 high-pitched main gables on the house. And then this leads you to, as you're looking at this front elevation, you're going to see 45% roofline and then 55% of other materials like our board and batten siding in the stone across the front. And it creates a beautiful look from the front of the house.
Now, like you said, if 45% is just the roof, we had to do some really great things to make that exciting and different and not just the roof. So that is why we have 5 gables and 2 dormers. So 7 gables dormer at a 12-12 pitch, which creates a lot more character to go with the style.
I think the rhythm and the roof line of this is second to none on any home we've built and or almost ever seen.
Well, the fascinating part about it is when you have those dormers in the gables, you have things that are protruding or coming out towards you. Then you also have things that are recessed. So it's giving you a really nice, complex feeling that also looks simplified with that chateau style.
And this amazing showcase home was designed with 16 steep gables, giving it that chateau-esque feel. I don't know, the framers either love us or hate us.
No, they don't like it. No,
They'll like it when they get paid.
Yeah.
Our design team here then added the words modern European to that chateau word to give it the unique architectural style we were going for.
And to really emphasize this roof, we picked a great color. It's black, but it's not just any ordinary black. It is a high definition, rich color to offset the rest of the house. It is absolutely gorgeous. And it does go very well with this European chateau style that we're talking about. Now, the big question is what is that all-encompassing? What we'd like to say is that this is a little bit of French, little Italian, some modern features with just hints of rustic old world charm, and it really is going to be so exciting to see all of those components come together.
Kind of sounds like America.
It's wonderful.
I was thinking of Airline Magazine.
The style really is stately. It's kind of that earthy country. It's sophisticated. It's got lots of different textures, so there's lots of layers that bring it all together.
And the unique roof lines make this home very appealing when you look at it visually. At Granite Ridge Builders, we call this our modern European chateau, and of course we're calling it the Monaco. It has so much visual interest, you're going to want to come out and see this.
So stay tuned. We're going to have plenty more episodes talking about the process of this amazing architectural style that we have coming up. But guys, we need to get out to the job site and give them some updates.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's go.
Bonnie, did they use hammers on this? Or did you guys have
The subject of today's show is the roof. And by the way, my dog loves this show because he goes around the house all day saying roof, roof.
Oh, Lonnie, that's definitely not your best material.
But anyway, let's talk about the roof on this modern European chateau style home. It's incredible. In fact, about 2/3 of what you see is the roof.
Yeah, and when, a lot of people ask us, what does that mean, that modern European chateau style? And when you Google that or you look up that type of a style, you'll notice that they do have a lot of very eccentric roof lines. And you can see that here. When you walk up to this house, your eyes are almost driven up, right? With all of these gables that you see.
And I think it's about 2/3 of what you see when you look at this house. A lot of people say, I really like this house, I really like that house. And a lot of times they're really referring to the roof system on the house.
Right, the roof system can make a style or it can also make it look a little awkward, right? So there is a lot of times that we spend talking through that. Now this one, if you were to see it from the sides, we call this just a gable style. There is a main ridge that runs through there, and on the side you'd see that massive gable, and that's a 10-12 slope on the sides. But everything you see behind us is a 12-12 slope, which is a true 45-degree angle.
Wow, try walking on a 12-12 slope roof. Almost impossible. It's impossible.
Yes, I don't know how they do it.
Yeah. And by the way, before we talk about what we see, what about under what we see? Let's talk about the roof system itself real quickly.
Yeah, so to bring you up to speed, where our framers have, they put the 1/2-inch sheet of OSB on there.
Okay.
Yep, and then they put our synthetic roofing underlayment, our Raptor, on top of that.
And that's like a material. Yes.
Yeah, it's a woven material that gives a little bit more of a waterproof, but also allows some more expansion and contraction, and gives it a nice surface for the framers to walk on when they start installing the shingles. And we did a little different shingle on this one. It may look like our standard shingles, but it's technically a Landmark Pro.
And I think, Luke, if I'm correct, that this thing has like a lifetime warranty theoretically.
Yeah, lifetime warranty, and the Pro gives it a little bit more weight and a little bit more definition. We knew with how big this house was going to be from the street, we didn't want to lose that definition on that roof. So you can still see what we call a dragon's tooth on all of those shingles, which again allows that definition.
That's just the style of the actual shingle that we're looking at. Now, on this particular house, there's a lot of slopes. There's a lot of gables, I guess you would call them, on the front of the house. Some of them are in the dormers. I think you're going to be in some of those dormers.
I'm meeting Elizabeth up there in just a bit. So yeah, dormers make a big impact on the exterior, but on the interior, they can add a lot of usable space done right.
Another component of this roof that I'm really excited about, because I'd like to install it, is the metal roof that's going to be on this porch area particularly.
Yeah, so on this one, we've done more of an accent metal roof. And again, over the porch or over that little pent roof that you see kind of on those garage windows, and they're not installed yet. You see writing on there right now. That's what we call ice and water shield. It's just protecting anything that's underneath that metal roof. Lonnie, I know you got that ball peen hammer, but I think I'm going to leave it up to the professionals to install the metal roof. So that's going to be installed about 2 weeks from now.
I know another important part of a roof is what we do in the valleys. And there's a lot of valleys. That's kind of where the roof lines come together. And ice and sleet and all those things can come together. So what do we do in those areas to protect the roof like this?
Sure. With any roof system, there's always going to be areas that are a little bit more susceptible, especially in our area with snow, ice, a lot of rain. We've been getting a lot of rain in the last few weeks. And those valleys where two slopes come together are one of those, because we're channeling a lot of that water to there. So we do a overlapping braiding method with our actual shingles, but then underneath that, we put that same ice and water shield to make sure there's plenty of protection throughout that whole valley.
And I've seen that material. That stuff is really durable. That stuff's not going anywhere.
No.
It's gonna shield stuff for years to come.
Yes. And speaking of another susceptible area, that last few feet of that roof, we have to be concerned in our area about ice dams. So Mike and I are going to talk about that here in just a minute.
Okay, Luke, let's not cuss on today's show. Hey, let's go take a little closer look though.
Can't take much more of this, guy.
Well, we're going to talk about dormers and the framing that goes into dormers. Now, this home is a European Chateau style, and with that style, we have a lot of dormers.
Right. Now, this dormer that's behind us is considered a gable dormer, which is going to be probably the most traditional one people recognize, and it's just got that peak to it. And that's one of the more traditional ones we use, but we also use a shed roof dormer, which we also have on this house.
We also, in our area, will use a wall dormer, a hip-on gable dormer. There's a lot of different styles you can do when it comes to dormers. This home in particular has several dormers. We're standing in one of them right now, and you can see all the space it adds to your room.
Right. So dormers kind of function as two things. One, you already mentioned it, kind of adds an architectural element to the exterior of the house, right? Adds a lot of flair, a lot of dimension to that front elevation or rear elevation. And it provides extra square footage and natural daylight into a space that we've got here.
Now, a lot of our homes feature faux dormers. So a faux dormer is something that you see on the outside, but it doesn't really serve a purpose inside. So it just adds to the curb appeal of that home. As you can see though, this is a very usable dormer. Imagine you could put a bench back here, you could have a chair, a lot of good ideas in this space.
So you talked about framing. So before we had this dormer in place, there would have just been about 4 roof rafters coming down here. We cut those out of the way. We added all this framing that you can see behind us, the header for the window. We've added more roof above our head. Now this one happens to be a 12-12 slope that we tied into a 10-12 slope roof. So we've got areas where now we've got water that we have to make sure stays away from the wall, even though the roof is funneling it that direction. So there is a lot of complexity when we do this, because we had a perfectly good roof beforehand, then we literally cut a hole in it to add this natural light and this extra square footage, and it just is one of those areas where it could be susceptible, if not done right, to further damage, but once it's done and all that extra usable space, not to mention the daylight, it just transforms the exterior and interior.
It does, and we are so blessed in our area with Granite Ridge Builders and our custom homes. We have the best craftsmen who can put this together for us and do it right. We are so thankful here in our area for that. Well, believe it or not, the space we're standing in right now is actually the attic. We are above the garage, and we're going to talk about how this area was framed. Now, Luke, this was framed with trusses, which we don't typically do. Explain why that was done.
Right, as you can see behind us, we've got a couple trusses that are running here. These are called storage trusses, which allows us a little bit more head height and also raises up the walls slightly, so we've got all this usable space for storage. And the reason we switched to trusses on this one is because directly below us is one of the garages, and there are no interior walls in the garages, so we weren't able to have support system below us, so we need to make sure we could span the entire direction. Now, we typically do stick framing. Now, stick framing, as you mentioned before, we've got wonderful framers, craftsmen in our area. That's the way we prefer, that's the way they prefer. It gives us a lot of flexibility. We can do a lot of unique things with the roof design. And there are still components of that are engineered. But once we reach a certain level where we're spanning very far distances, or it's got to support a lot of weight, as what we might have here, because who knows what they're going to store up here, we need to pull in trusses. And trusses are simply engineered wood products. So they're all pre-built, all engineered to make sure it can support the span as well as the weight, the anticipated weight on it. And in this case, this house at the Monaco, we've got trusses and stick frame. So it can be a mixture of both.
And I can understand, Luke, because this area is over 400 square feet. Talk about a lot of storage up here. It's like an apartment.
Now, Elizabeth, let me show you some of the incredible stick framing we've got on the other side of the house. All right, Elizabeth, believe it or not, we are on the 3rd floor, or if you count the basement, the 4th floor of the Monaco out here. And on this house, we did a lot of 10-12 roof pitches as well as 12-12 roof. And whenever we do that, we create a lot of attic space. So we thought to ourselves, why have that wasted attic space? Let's take advantage of it. And what was created was this space up here.
And this is going to be exciting. The decorators have a lot of great plans up here. We can't wait to show you those plans. Now, I call this the Kevin McAllister floor. If you remember, this is where he got left when they went on vacation. But anyways, it's hard to believe though, up here, we're actually standing in a dormer. So we had mentioned dormers before. We're standing in a shed dormer, which is hard to believe because it is so big.
Right, most people walking up the stairs, when they see this space, how big and spacious it is, they'll never realize that we incorporated a dormer off the rear of this house. And it's a shed roof dormer, as you mentioned, but it's about 14 feet wide. And as you can see, we have 5 great windows in here, which again, just brighten up this whole space, and you don't feel like you're in an attic space.
You don't. And then also in the front, we also have a gable dormer. So 2 dormers up here. This is going to be a great space. We can't wait to have it finished and have you out here to see what we've done with this home.
All right, we're out here at the Monaco, our $3 million model home, and we wanted to talk about ice dams a little bit today. You know, Luke, being in Indiana, we have a crazy amount of weather. Some days it's 25 degrees, we get 6 inches of snow, and then the next day it's 45 degrees and the sun's out. So what sort of problems do we face with ice dams, and you know, is there any way to prevent it, or how do we combat those?
Right, so you said the word ice dam, right? And this is really when we're talking about when we have snow on the roofs. It's not just the pure cold, we need that snow element also. Shingles are meant to shed water one direction. And the ice dam is created in the area that you can see just behind us here. You kind of see that black pipe coming through. That black pipe is right at the area where we call it the soffit, the freeze board. That whole thing there is our eave. And that eave is all set outside of the house, right? So that's gonna be all cold. Whatever the temperature is outside, if it's 15 degrees outside, the eave's gonna be 15. Now, where you see the white, the house wrap, that is where we have our wall to the house. So anything on the other side of that, the heat of the house is going to radiate up and it's gonna start melting the snow higher up on the roof. So that snow starts to melt and it runs down the roof just like it's supposed to, then it hits that eave. Well, I mentioned that eave, if it's 15 degrees, it's going to be cold. So that water is going to refreeze and it will create a dam, literally a dam of ice right there. And as dams do, they hold water and it backs up. And as I mentioned, shingles are supposed to only go one direction. So if it starts backing up, there's the potential for that water to start getting on the bottom side of our shingles. Now we do have our Raptor that helps protect it, but it is something, and it happens very rarely around here, but it is something that can happen, and it's not just to any, it can be any home in this area.
Well, Luke, speaking of cold, let me get some gloves here.
I told you, you don't have a jacket, no hat, no gloves. What are you thinking?
All right, guys, it's time to close. You know what? Before we close, though, I was just thinking, Do you know how many idioms there are when you talk about walls and roofs?
I don't know how many idiots there are. I can think one or two, but there's some pretty smart people in this room.
I didn't mean you guys. No, I meant idioms. In other words, sayings. So, for instance, I've got one. Today, I think we blew the roof off of it. Get it? That means it's exciting, it's impressive. I mean, what? You don't. Okay,
I got one. I got one. You can raise the roof.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that from the 90s?
Was that really a dance?
Oh, no.
What was it?
I don't know, but I don't want to ever see that again. Now, here's the scary thing about that. That term came from the mid-1800s.
Whoa.
I feel like I came from the mid-1800s.
After you dance, you do.
Sure do.
So, Charity, I don't know where that dance came from, but me growing up, we used to always dance to Who Let the Dogs Out, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Are you sure you're not just always in the doghouse?
I've made my bed in there. I'm okay with that.
I've got one. Here's one. Some of our shows are so entertaining that we often bring the house down.
Oh, good.
I remember that one. Remember when we shot out at the embassy? Right? That started in the theater with Shakespeare.
I don't think we ever want to be known as a builder who brought the house down.
Well, it just means people are out there clapping and applauding because some of us are so amusing.
Now wait, we are building over 100 homes, up to 398,000 that qualify for special financing, 1 to 5% payments from $1,400. Do you know what we need to do with this financing? Shout it from the rooftop.
Now that's a good idiom.
Put me up there. I don't even need a megaphone.
Well, did you guys know that lumber prices are through the roof? I mean, you could say they're off the charts even. So.
We don't need to be reminded
I
of that one.
know.
I'm telling you, every time we start this stupid idiom thing, you guys just start driving me up the wall.
I'm going to put my wall up because I'm kind of bored with all these sayings right now.
Let me tell you what I've learned since coming to work with you all. You're like a bunch of cats on a hot tin roof. I mean, you are excitable. We call Tony the Tasmanian devil.
True. He calls himself that.
Well, today we've been talking a lot about roof lines. We've been talking about the rhythm of the roof. Kind of reminds me of the show we did on music and architecture, how it was all the same. So my favorite movie, I think it's like hearing Fiddler on the Roof. Get it?
Oh. Okay, we have hit the roof with roof idioms. I think that's enough. Kayla, why don't you go ahead and close this show?
Well, first I want to say a saying that we love around here, which is, a house is made of walls and beams, but a home is made of love and dreams. Well, thank you guys so much for watching us today. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about who we are, what we do, and why we do what we do so well, please pick up the phone and give us a call. Visit our website, or even better yet, come in our front doors. We would love to talk to you about building your new home.
We're going to have to make that into a sign and put it above our TV or something.
Called the Monaco in Chateau Creek, just right off of North Coldwater Road in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We couldn't get through the second line.
Got to the second page, no problem.
A house is made of walls and beams, but a home is made of some hope and dreams or something like that. I don't know.
We say it all the time around here.
We memorize it.
We start every day.
What did he used to say?
The level of sincerity, she's heartfelt.
Kaylee, you just blew the most.
She's tearing up.
I've never heard
You ever
this
watch
before.
Bruce Almighty?
Every morning at 9:05, everybody raised.
That was supposed to be the most memorable thing we've done all day.
I actually like the saying.
You're supposed to make us cry.
Yeah.
Laugh and
Sugar and spice and everything.